Hello, everybody. I'm Howie Hawkins. I was the Green Party and Socialist Party candidate for president in 2020. And this podcast, Green Socialist Notes, is about continuing to educate and organize around the eco-socialist platform that Angela Walker and I ran on. And today we have a guest, Christina Khalil, who is the Green candidate for U.S. Senate in New Jersey, a seat now held by Bob Menendez. You've probably heard of him. He was been indicted. He's got several counts of bribery and for acting as an agent of the Egyptian government while serving as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It's kind of ironic because Christina is of Egyptian heritage. When the federal agents searched his home, they found over $500,000 in cash and $100,000 in gold bars. He's been indicted before. He's kind of the poster boy for corrupt New Jersey politics. He's kind of the top dog. So whether he's on the ballot in 2024, when this is the election Christina's running for, we'll have to see. But Christina is somebody who grew up in foster care and earned her bachelor's degree in psychology and her master's degree in social work from Ramapo College in New Jersey. And she now works in the medical and substance abuse field. So Christina, tell us why you're running for this office and what you hope to accomplish with your campaign.
So, all right, growing up in foster care, I experienced homelessness as a teenager, and after I aged out, I was emancipated at the age of 16, but I was still able to somehow, I don't understand the rules, but they were able to still keep me in a foster home. And then after that, I went to college. I got accepted into Ramapo College for my undergrad, and I had to take out a lot of loans, so I had a place to stay, and I lived on campus. But after graduation, I also experienced homelessness as a young adult. And throughout that time, I worked 2 jobs, and I was always told, if you work and you stay true to yourself and you don't break the law and you do a whole bunch of things, like good things happen, then you're supposed to be able to buy a house. You're supposed to be able to do this. But the entire system was already stacked against me. I didn't have a real opportunity, and no one seemed to grasp the fact, like, where I'm just like, I really can't afford this, or I really need help with this. Or like when I would go for an apartment, they would say you need a cosigner, and I'm just like, I'm by myself. I don't have a family. Like, I grew up in foster care. I don't have a cosigner. And then being told you have to make 3 to 4 times the amount. I'm like, I make enough. I was making sometimes a little above or almost 2 times the amount. But I'm just like, I never qualified. And thankfully I had friends, and I spoke to some people. I was able to move in with people, but I never got my own place until I really spoke with a landlord at the age of 24, 25. And I'm still in the place, but I never had a safe environment. And I did, quote unquote, everything right. The way the system says, if you do this, everything's going to work out. And I did it all, and nothing ever worked out. And I always was experiencing more struggles, more trials, more tribulations. And I'm just like, I'm not understanding the point of doing all this if it's only hardship as the result, when I already had hardship. Then I was able to actually wind up going back to school for my master's, because I was like, let me figure it out. And I was in such a privileged position to go back to school for my master's. And I honestly never thought that would have happened for me. I thought that was it. And going for my master's, I wound up, the pandemic happened, and I was working front lines at the hospital during the entire pandemic. And it became so clear that the elected officials didn't care. We were at the front line. We didn't know what COVID was at that time. Everyone's PPE, we were struggling with that. It was a crisis, and they were all behind their desks making these decisions and not listening to the medical professionals or any of the professionals that were out there in real life. And the management and the structure within all these hospitals, due to the policies in place, it was only designed it was like a rotating funnel. Because I know there's a lot of issues with the vaccine topic, but it wasn't the vaccine that was the issue. It was how they were handling it was the issue. And it was like we had it came to the point where, because they were getting more money, we would have patients, and the patients were coming in and they were supposed to get the PCR test. And the management, and it wasn't just my hospital, it was many other hospitals with it, the management said, let's skip the PCR test, do a rapid, and then we'll do a PCR, but let's combine as many people together as possible so we could get more money per person. And we would advocate, and they want to listen to us. So we're like, you can't do that because that's dangerous, because, you know, the rapids, it's only 50% accurate. We need the actual PCR test. We don't need the rapid. We need to know if this person has, you know, COVID, and handle them accordingly. And the management didn't care. We were just told, come into work, go do what you have to do. We're just going to do our structure our way. And then just watching the news and listening to the politics and watching everything happening, I was just like, I'm going to run for office. I don't know what office I'm going to run for yet. I'm going to run for office. And working in the community too, because working in the substance abuse field, it's never just an office. You're always going out in the community and working with people. You see the structural inequality and the barriers that everybody faces. And then as you're out there and you're going out there and you're working, you're seeing, wait, this could be solved easily. We have the funding for this. If we just redirected this and rewrote a little bit of policies like that, I'm like, we could save so many lives. And it's just, and advocating, because I've sent letters, I've made phone calls, I've done protests, and it's and I'm not like, sometimes they'll care when you do the protest, but a lot of times they don't care. They'll just look at you straight in your face and be like, oh, I hear you, that's a good idea, and then they go about their day and they don't really care. And then Menendez, this wasn't his first indictment, and you know, I was a Democrat, and until I started researching, they're like, vote blue no matter who, vote blue no matter who. But then they're saying, oh, Republican Party is bad, and I'm like, let me research who I'm actually voting for. Let me actually like dig in deep. Let me learn about their background and stuff. And I was just seeing Menendez's first indictment. I was just like, this is crazy. I'm like, he's equally as bad as Trump. Like, what are we doing that we're saying this is okay because he's a Democrat, but it's not okay because this guy's a Republican? So I was just like, okay, I'm going to go register and run. And I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning. And I wound up finding an amazing group of people that had the same passion and drive. And they actually they helped guide me on how to submit my application, my information, so I can get set up, so I can get on the ballot. And I was able to actually start the process, and they were able to explain what was expected to be in documentation wise, because the FEC process, if you don't know, it's another language. It's very stressful and overwhelming. And I wound up graduating, and I made a promise to myself actually before I did this, once I graduate, if I'm presented with the opportunity and the right people to run, I'm going to follow through and I'm going to run, because I want to make sure no one has to go through this stress. No one has to go through the trials and tribulations. And if I could prevent other people from suffering the way I've suffered and prevent other people from suffering the way I've seen so many other families suffering, I'm going to go 110%. And what I'm hoping to gain from this campaign is I'm actually in it to win it. I'm actually in it to inspire, to get more people to register green, to be able to go to every single county and every congressional district, do a town hall, meet the voters, speak with people. So I'm actually in it to win it.
Well, that's definitely, what you should be in it for. You should run a serious campaign. I really think it's important that Greens don't run token campaigns, which we sometimes do, because they say, well, at least we're on the ballot, but the voters won't take us seriously if we do that. So it has to be a serious campaign. But then there's different definitions of winning. Winning the office is, of course, the most desirable outcome, but you can win in other ways by, increasing the base in the Green Party, increasing
Yes.
the number of votes we get, putting issues on the table which are not being addressed. And you've just described one of them, to deal with our medical system. And of course, there are other issues. So I think if you don't win the office, you should have other, goals in mind so that you can, gauge how well you did and, come out of this in a better place than we went into it. So,
Oh, yeah, 100% agree. So my platform is really to tackle the failed war on drugs, to bring in Medicare for all or universal health care, depending on the words that people want to use. And Howie, you were amazing with your Medicare for all plan, and you have, to the public, he has graciously let me utilize his policy to continue his bills and his policy for Medicare for all. So that is on the platform, because his outline for that was just spectacular. And the fact it was a 10-year model, and it was just, the reviews were just, everything was just really spot on. The goal is to redesign immigration. Instead of, removing ICE, because I've worked with immigrants coming over, redesigning the immigration process, making it much easier. And also, instead of having Border Patrol, actually adding, more screeners, more lawyers, more people in the community that can help people that are processing to come over here to get better help. If they need guidance on receiving mental health care, if they need guidance on going to the hospital, if they need guidance on, putting their application together for immigration, that's what we're doing. It's making it a very big community resource, because the United States is the only country in the entire world where we are full of immigrants, and this is our basis of everything. So we can't deter from what the root of the United States is. We want to keep that true, and this is, so instead of going into geopolitics right now, I'm just going to stay in the United States. But many of the residents in this country have family overseas, and there's so much abuse happening within the ICE detention centers currently, and there isn't one elected official that's standing up for the victims in ICE detention centers. So it's just giving them more voice, letting them know that they're heard, letting them make sure that their process is going to get taken care of, and just helping them get situated within this country.
Well, the Medicare for all issue is certainly one that will get you votes. It's got super majority support. In polling, it's usually well over 65%. I remember at the end of the 2020 campaign, Fox News asked a biased question: do you want government-run healthcare? And they thought would alienate people, and 72% said yes. We want a public healthcare system. And then immigration, the Republicans are using that to scare people. We're being invaded and all this nonsense, when in fact it's one of the biggest humanitarian crises in the world.
And
we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people fleeing oppression, climate change, poverty, and we're keeping them on the other side of the border. They have to wait in line to even get their hearing. And so, dealing with that, the two major parties, they're afraid of it. So the Republicans do a lot of rhetorical stuff, and the Democrats wring their hands and say the Republicans won't let us do anything. But I guess what I'm saying is Medicare for all is going to get you a lot of votes. Immigration is going to be a minefield. But I think if you present it as a humanitarian issue and get people to empathize with immigrants, as most people in this country descend from immigrants, so there's a basis there for trying to bring out the empathy people would naturally hold if they didn't hear all this crazy rhetoric about invasions and drug dealers and rapists and all this crap you get from people like Trump and his minions. So I think those are two good issues.
Well, actually, and I'll speak on this. I can't go into detail because there is a little bit of an NDA that I had to sign. But in my past, I have worked in preventing I'll say in preventing sexual assault reoccurring, and not one person that I met, and we're talking about hundreds of people, was an immigrant. They were all born in the United States. So I will just throw that little bit out there, and I can't really elaborate too much because I don't think I'm allowed to say too much more than that. But that was also a very interesting time because it did open my eyes too, and I received so much education just working in that field. And when it comes to immigration, I've also ICE, and what a lot of people don't realize is ICE detention, ICE officers, they're a lot worse. And, the police police brutality is a big, big issue. But imagine police brutality on steroids. That's what ICE officers are. There's no such thing as come with us. It's extreme violence and extreme trauma that happens to the victim that's being arrested, that happens to the families that are with them. There's no communication, and they don't even listen to you if you are an actual citizen of this country. If you have a green card in this country, they are just like, don't look like you belong. You go right into ICE, and we'll process that later. And that's a huge red flag. And I've had to deal with the aftermath, the trauma that ICE has caused, the trauma with families that these Border Patrol officers cause, that the policymakers have caused, and not one of them cares. And then I have to go in there and I have to try and heal that broken family. And that's impossible when you're just like, okay, well, and they're just like, these people that we elected, they don't care. How do you argue that? You're right. They don't care. They don't care about you. And you have to try and give them hope when they're hopeless. And I remember there was a few teenagers that I've worked with, and one really stuck out. He was, the individual was a grade A student, grade A, perfect student, very involved in his school and in his community. And ICE came and just in a violent, traumatic way ripped the family apart. And he wound up joining a gang and wound up addicted to opiates. So now we have two issues. Immigration's tied to the war on drugs. And then these victims are self-medicating because he didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to process his emotions. He's a teenager, and he's got to be strong for his mom and the rest of his family. And within his culture, now he's the man of the house. And and all these issues intertwine with each other. And then he had limited, and this goes into Medicare for all too, because when he was going to the hospital to get help, he had limited coverage. And so there were so many barriers already helping to help this young person, that the policymakers created these barriers. So you already saw three issues in just one individual: the war on drugs impacting him, being labeled that he's a criminal for having an addiction because he used medication to self-medicate the pain and trauma that the war on immigrants has caused, and then our failed medical policies have prevented him from getting the help that he needed for recovery. And he just kept coming back, hoping that he could get coverage. And the insurance company will keep saying he's not sick enough. He's not sick enough. He's not worth, we're not going to cover him. We're not going to give him the help. And he would just be crying at the hospital, asking for help. And nobody would be able to, we could not help him because of the insurance company. So that's just one example. And a lot of people don't realize that there are so many different layers when it comes to individualized people and how all these policies multiply and impact everyone on an individual level. So when you're able to actually pull yourself back and say, okay, if I could implement one policy, say, tomorrow I get elected or whatnot, and I make and I'm able to pass one policy, that already in itself is going to help millions of people. I already removed one barrier just with healthcare for all. And like yesterday I was talking to someone else that last year they spent $44,000 on healthcare in 1 year. And there was a lot of medical issues that happened that year. That's crazy. And the family is financially struggling, but they're not the only ones spending over $40,000. This is a war on just working class people. And having like health insurance tied to jobs, it removes so many ability. Like this person, now they're okay. So the family, the individual was running a business. The individual got sick with a permanent disease that's only going to increase. And now the person's at the point where they're not capable of working, but there's other issues and other diseases that are happening within the family. So the person that is healthy, the other partner that's healthy in this family, they're trying to navigate and take care of everyone. And now they actually have to go back to work and not spend the time that they were spending with their family just so they can have better health insurance and medical care. And all these people that are sick in the family for half the day are going to have to be taking care of themselves. And it's another barrier. We're preventing families from actually being more effective and more cohesive with each other within the household. And people aren't able to be the what's the word I'm looking for? As involved, or it creates a lot of issues. It creates a lot of resentment. There we go. That's the word. So they're resenting, the system, and they're resenting themselves because people are wishing that they were rich enough, or they had more money, or, they were able to be a better person to take care of their family. And then they have this resentment toward themselves, this resentment towards society, and the resentment towards elected officials. And it really is the elected officials' fault, because it's the American citizens that run this country. It isn't the policymakers. If we weren't working every day, this entire country would fall. There'd be no structure. There'd be no foundation. And we're seeing that with the protests, even with Ford. They're just like, if you guys keep protesting, there's a chance Ford might be in trouble. We might lose Ford. That's your fault for not taking care of the workers. And so it's just a domino impact. And all these issues could be eliminated with just the proper leaders in place and the proper policies in place.
Yeah, that reminds me, Ralph Nader always used to say when he was running, we know what the solutions are.
Yeah.
The problem is the people in office and the money behind them don't want to solve the problems. We've been getting a lot of questions in the chat, so maybe we should start responding to those.
Oh.
And they'll come up here. Here we go. Amy L. Sachs, can't wait to hear if the Democrats will deign to debate this candidate or just freeze us out like they usually do.
Oh, right now they're freezing because I've actually been asking for debates.
Have there been debates at this point?
No, but so Menendez actually looks like there's a chance he might be winning the primary, and that the way everything's projecting itself, I'm just foreshadowing. I would like to debate Menendez now. I know he won't, because the way New Jersey is, it's just so corrupt. And I remember speaking to somebody in Washington, and they said New Jersey is the most corrupt state in the entire country. I wish you the best of luck. If you can somehow beat it through, then go right ahead. More power to you. It's just, I've been asking for debates. There hasn't been any right now, but I'm so excited to go against Menendez.
Well, there are ways to get in debates that aren't official debates. You can, put an empty chair and, debate the empty chair. If there are debates, you can respond online. I had a comedian come out and impersonate Andrew Cuomo, and we had a debate on the street in New York. There are a lot of creative ways. And the other thing is, if you can, once your campaign's established, go to editorial board meetings, with the different newspapers. And if they're impressed that you're a candidate that's serious and knows about the issues, you can ask them to advocate that you be included in the debates, to open up the debates, to put issues on the table that you're bringing that the other candidates won't. So
That's a good idea. I know with Madeline Hoffman, I spoke with her. What they did was they said that they would include the Green Party in the last election debate, and they set it up, and then they purposely left her out. So they've had time, like they'll tell the Green Party candidates, yes, you're going to be part of the debate, and then they exclude them and hold the debate without them.
Another thing you run into, I ran 3 times for governor. I was able to debate Andrew Cuomo twice.
Oh, that's
the third time, he decided he didn't want to debate. He didn't even want to debate the Republican. So what I did was I went to the League of Women Voters and said, why don't you sponsor an all candidates debate? And they agreed to do that. Now, Cuomo didn't show up. The Republican, who's now a member of Congress, Mark Molinaro, showed up. The Libertarian showed up. The former mayor of my city showed up. I got more votes on her in Syracuse, the county, and the state than she did, which, goes to show that the Greens are, not just an afterthought, particularly after you build a base, as we did through 3 campaigns. So I think civic organizations, one of the problems you get is the media will decide they can't broadcast a debate unless the top candidates agree to it. So what ends up being the top candidate sets the parameters. That's what Cuomo did. And in this case, I don't know if Menendez has still got the status with the media, but the major party candidates, if they say, no, we're not going to debate, or we won't debate if the Green candidate is there, the media goes along with that. And you've got to challenge them to be open to all candidates and let the voters decide, not preempt, by editorial decision. And that's an argument that you can have, you and your supporters, you can write op-eds, letters to the editor, news releases, because that's a big fight. I mean, getting heard, getting a hearing is half the battle. Once people hear us, our policies are more popular than the 2 major parties.
Yes.
Things like Medicare for all. So that's a crucial part of the campaign.
Yeah, and we are the only ethical candidates. We don't take corporate donations. On top of that, we're not bought out. We're not working for the corporations. We're working for the voters. So,
in other words, you don't take legalized bribery.
Yeah.
Because these corporate donations are legal, but they are bribes.
Yeah. So what we're doing as we're building the infrastructure for this campaign, we're actually trying to reach out to Jon Stewart in New Jersey, because his platform, he really does align with the Greens, and we're trying to get him to switch and look at us, because he could really help boost all of us and boost the campaign. And it's not, and the beautiful thing that we're structuring, because it's not just my campaign boosts the other Greens campaign, not just on a national level, but it also does it on a state level, because we're going to have a straight ballot line in 2024. And that is the president, me, and every single congressional district filled. So we're already creating this giant infrastructure and this giant blueprint, because the goal is to have us win, and not just one person win. We're a team, and we have to look at this as a team. So it's not just me doing, like when I'm doing town halls, I'm going to go do town halls with other candidates. So it's not just me doing town halls by myself. We're moving as a unit. We're moving as a team. And that's how you do this as a leader, because I've learned a lot about the position I'm going for, and I'm just like, okay, I have to be and already act like the leader that I'm trying to be. And it's not about me and myself, it's about the entire Green Party and our infrastructure and every single candidate that's part of it.
Yeah, I hope people heard that. New Jersey Greens are planning to run a complete slate of congressional candidates. What are there, 12 congressional districts? A candidate for U.S. Senate, and we'll see if we got a presidential candidate. That's up in the air for the Green Party right now, but we may have news on that soon.
Yes.
So let's see what the next question is. Well, Gary Brown said you're awesome. Here we go.
Oh,
Gary Brown, Christina, what do you consider your biggest challenge for improving things in New Jersey?
my biggest challenge, so I feel there's so many, I can't even pick one. There's so many challenges. My biggest challenge right now is just getting voters to have hope, because that's my only thing. And after the last election, it's it, I had two Republicans actually switch over to the Green Party. We had 500 people register for Green Party, so I know two of them are mine. But it's encouraging people, letting them know, like, hey, we're real, because the last election, everybody was lied to, and they were lied to on such a deep level that there is zero trust in politicians. And what we're seeing play out, none of the voters' wishes or wants are actually being heard. It's all about what the elites want, the elected officials want, not what the voters want. So my biggest challenge that it just comes to mind is like giving hope back on such a national level, on such a large scale, because it's different when I'm doing it one-on-one with an individual or even like a small group of people. But it's much harder to go there, because like when I was talking to some people, people in Paterson, New Jersey, and they were struggling with the fact, like, to even believe. And they're like, well, you're here. Well, how do I know you're not going to vanish like every other candidate? I'm like, well, this is the receipts. I've never actually vanished before. I've always followed through. This is my work. And it would take a very long time for somebody to even like trust that I was actually there for authentic reasons. So that's trust in politics. That's my biggest challenge, I would say. And that's what comes through, because I feel like when it comes to policy changes, when I start presenting policy changes and they're saying, oh, we don't want to do this, then okay, let's do a rally and a protest and get the people outside. And you got a whole bunch of elected officials that are going to be outside with you. And that's going to send a giant message that we're out here with the people, and we're very serious about this, and but it's giving hope and letting them know that they actually have an authentic, real candidate, and not just me. And the Green Party is authentic and real, and we are here for the voters. We are here to actually heal people, not harm people.
Yeah, I often say that non-voters are mostly alienated, not apathetic, because I know too many people that don't vote, but they want to know what I think about issues because they are following them and they care about them.
Yeah.
They're just very cynical that the people that are on offer for elections are worth voting for.
Yeah, and they have every right to be like that with all the pain that they've gone through. Like we had in this administration, or was it the last year actually, 60,000 people committed suicide. And I've worked with people that were suicidal, and that's very hard. And the people that can do that job, God bless you, because the amount of stress and fear that I have gone through just working in that line of work, because you never ever know what's going to happen. I just remember like families cry. I just remember the emotions working there, and the administration not even tackling that or even addressing that. 60,000, it's not just people where they're replaceable, where you drop a bottle of milk and could go to the store and buy new milk. That's 60,000 families that are feeling excruciating pain every single day, because when you lose a loved one like that, it's horrendous, and that stays with you for the rest of your life, because you carry on with, I didn't realize that there were signs, and then there were signs, but then you couldn't help because there were so many other barriers. And it's just the policy failures. It's like just that alone, it's just wild.
Justice B, looking forward to sharing your and New Jersey Green's campaigns. What are your criticisms of Governor Phil Murphy?
Oh my God, everything you could think of. Phil Murphy, oh God, I think my favorite phrase he ever said, I can't remember word for word, but essentially like when it was the leftover COVID money and people are still struggling, he goes, well, that's my money, not your money. So I would do whatever I want with my money. And I'm just like, give it to the people in the community that are struggling, put it in programs, do something, help people. What are you doing? And then even going into geopolitics just a little bit, everything that's happening between Israel and Palestine, it's the audacity that this man has. So there is this imam in New Jersey, and everyone's like, work on peace. We're advocating for peace. We want this. And he's like, I support Israel. And then, but he'll go to the imams in the Muslim communities and he'll use them for Ramadan, use them for votes, and just use the heck out of them. And one of the imams, 7 members of his family died in this recent battle. And it was last week. They died. And Phil called up the imam because he likes using him. The Democrats love using him for votes. And Phil just goes, I'm sorry. And he's like, well, I need you to go out, and I need more than sorry. Like, do a ceasefire, work toward peace, do something. And he was like, no, just want to let you know, I'm sorry your family died, and hung up the phone. I'm like, what is wrong with that? Everything is wrong with that. Everything is wrong with Phil. And then he wants to move to electric vehicles. And I'm totally for green, but there's no infrastructure. Why are we not building the infrastructure and making it easier for people to get electric vehicles? You can't get electric vehicles and not have the appropriate amount of charging stations anywhere in New Jersey. It's just, everything is wrong with Phil Murphy.
Waiting here for the next question. Scout Trooper 164. How do you feel with the union strikes against video gaming regarding artificial intelligence, AI, being used to replace writers? I only use ChatGPT for ideas and for questions.
So I'm for the strikes because that we want people to work, and it's okay to use like AI for ideas and questions, because you might be having a writing slump and you might need to have like an inspiration, or you're just like, how do I figure this out? Or you need to goof off, and ChatGPT is actually really good because they sometimes will give you funny answers. But I'm for workers and unions, and I want to make sure that people don't get replaced by just artificial intelligence, and that people have a job, and it's good to work with it, not replace it from a human being. Like artificial intelligence, if you have an idea but you're just like, I haven't perfected it yet, artificial intelligence can help you find that missing piece. And so that's what I would say for that.
Amy L. Sachs. Christina, how goes the fight to defend and promote trans rights and protect trans youth in New Jersey? Thanks.
Okay, I love this question. I will say, because it's not just New Jersey, I'm federal, so I'm countrywide. There is not one candidate that is actually supportive of the LGBTQ community. And I don't care what the Dems say or what AOC says. I don't care if like, if you are not for affordable housing just by itself and fighting and presenting bills, you are not for the LGBTQ youth, because we need to make sure that a lot of these homeless youth, what is happening in the community is they're on the streets because their families don't accept them. They're placed in very dangerous situations, and they're exposed to predators, and they have to sleep with people to get shelter, or sleep on the street, and they are forced to do things that they don't want to, that are so far out of their comfort zone because they just have to survive. So the goal is to provide universal health care, affordable housing, and making sure that people, every human being is safe at the end of the day, because we can't just say like, I support you and not actually put in policies to create a safe environment and a safe path for you. And so yeah. So that's how I'm going to handle that.
I really like that because you're dealing concretely with what LGBTQ and particularly trans youth face,
Yeah.
instead of vaguely I'm for trans rights and LGBTQ rights, and then they leave it at that. And the damn Democratic Party could have passed the Equality Act,
Mm-hmm.
which would have made sexual orientation and sexual expression or gender expression, uh, it would have protected them from discrimination. And they passed it in the House, but of course the filibuster in the Senate, it was blocked. And the damn Democrats didn't do anything about the filibuster, whether it was, gay rights, voting rights, labor rights. There were all kinds of bills that passed the House, but didn't pass the Senate because of that filibuster. And, it wasn't just Biden. There were about 10 senators. The Washington Post was keeping a track of that. And if you go back and look, you'll probably find Menendez was one of those that didn't want to get rid of the filibuster. So, that just really irritates me. Another right was abortion rights. They could have codified Roe v. Wade. They passed a bill for that in the House.
Yep.
And it died in the Senate because of the filibuster.
Yep.
So,
and I'm not going to let.
I think you need to hold the Democrats accountable for that.
Oh, yeah. They're equally at fault because I have to, again, when I'm working out in the community, the number one, it's, and even if, everything, the bills are passed, we still have youths that are in family environments that are potentially dangerous because there are kids. A lot of people don't know this. The dark side of families, there are kids that get beaten severely for even having their own identity. And because I worked at a high school, the amount of work that had to go into the fear and so a lot of the parents, not every single parent, because I've met such amazing supportive parents, but there are parents out there that are just like, you are property, you cannot speak on this, you are not going to humiliate me, and they will create such fear and such abuse to these kids, and then the kids come in and and you just have to deal with these horror stories. So the goal is to create safe spaces and creating a safe environment. Like if these kids are fearing for, these teenagers are fearing for their lives, then maybe we need to put them in a shelter. If they're getting beaten for having an identity that doesn't match what their parents' beliefs are, and they're getting beaten severely, we need to make sure that we're not keeping the state and the country doesn't keep that teenager in that environment, that they're able to get the mental health help. And then if the parents want to, and with proper therapy and with proper process, maybe down the road reunite them, and that's on both their individual comfort level. But it's just, there's such a dark world out there that many people don't seem to grasp or understand. But again, that people don't work in the community or the field. I do, and I've seen that side of it, and it's not just a handful, it's thousands of people. And it's just homeless youth in general, where kids are running away because they're just like, I'm going to get killed by my parents. So they're in C-Squat in New York City trying to just survive the next day.
B.D. Dimmitt, have you a stand on making nature a person, as New Zealand has done with the river system, for instance?
So I'm going to answer this the best way I understand this. There is a current bill that is being completely ignored. It's the Clean Water Bill Act, and it's going to remove PFAS and help remove all the harmful chemicals within all water systems in this country alone. So the goal is to really clean the oceans, really rebuild the ecosystem, and really help unite the the communities and reduce pollution on not just a mediocre, on a great level. And then also help with improve and build upon local farmers to remove the corporate involvement on farming and production, and making local food sources around the country easier to access. So if you're going into an urban community, instead of liquor store on every corner, you're going to see a health store on every corner, and really improve people's lives. So there's multiple different platforms that I address on my website, and also helping animals too, just in general, and with the improved ecosystem, with the clean water, and with affordable housing, and excuse me, a livable wage. We're going to see less animals being euthanized, more animals in homes, and really preventing backyard breeders. So we're tackling a whole bunch of issues in different levels of policies. So I hope that sort of answers your question.
I think the idea of making nature, or a particular, piece of nature like a river system in New Zealand,
Okay.
a person, gives the natural object legal standing, so that then people
Got
can
it.
sue on its behalf, and they have a stronger argument for getting standing in a court to defend that natural object. That's what I
Got it.
understand that the purpose of that to be.
Okay, yeah, no, my policies essentially will be making nature a person, and I will do more research on this, because this is the first time I heard about making nature a person in New Zealand. But we have to keep the water system clean. We have to clean the oceans. We have to clean the rivers. We have to clean all water systems, because everything without water, we would all die. So we have to make sure everyone has equal access to healthy and clean water, and that we're going, because that's just, I feel like that's just common sense, but corporations don't like common sense.
They don't. Carrie Chet Campbell, transportation, more trains, less traffic, walkable, bikeable, pedestrian, rail-friendly communities, cut parking minimums and maximums, car-free, car-less communities are big green issues in Virginia. New Jersey is a vital piece of high-speed Northeast Rail. What is your Green Party's campaign's position on these transportation issues?
So I briefly spoke about this before. It's building the infrastructure, because it's one thing to say, yeah, let's go green, but if you don't have the infrastructure where people can access, like bikes and trains and railways easier, then it's not going to work. And right now we have Murphy in office. He's like, everyone needs an electric car by 2030. Okay, well, what are you doing to make sure everyone can manage an electric car? And what's the infrastructure looking like so we can sustain this? And that's what a lot of people are upset about. And actually, a lot of people are keeping their fuel car, because they're like, where am I going to charge my car? Where's this going to be? And you want me to use bikes? How am I supposed to get from here to there? If the train station takes like every hour to get there, or the bus takes 2 hours to get to where I need to be. So I've heard a lot of voters bring those issues up. So it's creating with a team of people saying, okay, how can we address this? And bringing actual real professionals in, not people who are just bought out, that understand we're going to have to create this design, this infrastructure, this blueprint, this map, and we're going to execute it. And that's going to really help the environment, and also making everything affordable, because right now what's happening every year, they're raising the fare prices on everything. And I keep seeing that in the news every year, the fare prices on this. And we were supposed to, like in New Jersey, what Murphy did was with the renewable energy funding, he took about $2 billion out of that, and that was supposed to go to renewable energy in New Jersey. He took that money out and said it was for New Jersey Transit. The New Jersey where'd that money go? Because the New Jersey Transit was about to be shut down because he didn't have money, and then he was able to take money from somewhere else to put it into New Jersey Transit, but then everything's raising. So it's also preventing an audit and saying, be very transparent where money's going, why are we transferring this, and creating that structure so that way it's not just an idea, it's successful moving forward.
Vicky Corden, electric cars can be very expensive for a lot of people.
Yes, 1000%. Creating bills where it's grants, if once the structure is built, because on a federal level, and we're wasting money on war that we don't need to be wasting, and military, using actual federal funding, if people want to go in and trade their cars in, making it very, very cheap, or actually doing an equal trade, is a very realistic idea. So making it so easily accessible for people, and then making sure that the cars aren't, that the corporations didn't do like, little cuts on these cars, and be like, okay, since we're giving them away, I'll get money this way from the federal government and then double dip it. No, making sure that the cars are up to top tier standard. So that is one of the things I'm tackling to help get everything green.
Yeah, one of the things I've advocated with respect to vehicles, cars, is that we should build out public transportation and pedestrian and bike infrastructure to the point where people don't need a personal car to go to work, to go to school, to shop. You might need it for, trips, vacations, or, certain, you're going to the hardware store or the lumber yard to get supplies, and you can't take them on the bus or the subway or the train. But those should be, like a vehicle fleet that is available to everybody, not Enterprise or Avis or Hertz, but a public utility that provides cars to people, rent at cost, and then just about everybody could afford a vehicle when they need it, but otherwise they can get around without having the enormous expense of a personal vehicle. That would be a very different approach than what we're getting from the federal government, which is just fixated on building out, continuing the dominance of automobiles, which creates sprawl. It's less efficient use of urban space. If you have more compact development, you get energy efficiencies, material efficiencies, time efficiencies for people. And instead, they're just substituting gas guzzlers for electric vehicles at much more expense,
yes,
and much less convenience than we could have with a real public transportation system. You replace gas guzzlers with electric vehicles, and you're still going to have huge traffic jams in New York and Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. and everywhere else. And think of all the time we waste, sitting on, multi-lane highways and boulevards that are just parking lots because we're moving so slow.
yeah.
So I think, we need a radical reconstruction. I think, Carrie Campbell's question was pointing toward that. So I think, we really need to radically revamp our transportation policy. But anyway, we got time for another question. B.D. Dimmick, cool. Have you watched Baltimore's Harbor's litter cleaning machine?
No, I haven't. I will definitely check it out.
Yeah, MrTrashWheel.com. That sounds like something they could use in the Pacific Ocean for all that plastic pollution.
Yeah, I've actually
global problem.
I've spoken with different people that actually have things to clean oceans, and different ways of bringing solar renewable energy sources to even different parts of the country. Like if electricity goes out, that the solar energy is able to continue to run machines and or houses for a couple of days until things are back in place. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm actually learning from them how affordable things are. Because before I started this, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, everything's just so expensive. But when you have the right leaders in office and you have the right right, people that put together these blueprints, everything's affordable immediately, especially in the long run.
Ashley R., looking at her platform, Christina is an advocate for substance abuse and senior care. I think she means substance abuse treatment. I don't see any mention of autism and disability rights. Can she elaborate on that?
Oh, actually, yes, I can. It's not on my website because we're still working and finalizing things, and I have my policies. Before I publish them, I get them reviewed by multiple people. So one of the things, if we're looking at autism or just anyone with disability that's on the lower end of the spectrum, like for example, in our what is it, Robert? But there's a high school in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey, and I can't remember the name of the school. And there's a lot of barrier issues when it comes to getting treatment. So and I'm going to use inner cities for example. As these young adults age out of the program, I feel like, with repetition and schooling, a lot of these young adults need continuing education. And what happens is they hit 21, they're aged out, they're supposed to go home. And there's two issues that I've always seen that were always barriers. One, they age out. The parents are working 2 to 3 jobs. They can't continue the education or the structure that the school is able to provide. And then the individual starts to regress in the behaviors that they have been working and practicing on. Another one is, actually there's 3 barriers. Another one is, if we when we getting elected, being able to put in aids with these those that struggle with disabilities, that struggle with being independent, because there's if anyone watched the Best Kept Secret, the one individual, his dream was to work at Burger King, and Menendez is unfortunately in that documentary, and he didn't care about the young man's dream to work at Burger King, and they needed money for an aid, and he didn't care. So at the end, he wasn't able to work at Burger King, but if he had that aid, that would have reduced a lot of stress within the family dynamic after him aging out, and he would have been able to continue to learn skills and continue to have repetition and support out in the community. So now, while the parents are working, I'm not sure where he is now, but he is not. Just the way the documentary ended, he wasn't able to get the structure that he needed to continue to grow. And then the other barrier that I've noticed and realized is not many parents have the ability to actually care for, as the young adults age out of the program, is to care for them continually. So one parent was, they were themselves disabled, and no one could give me the answer, which drove me crazy, is, the mom said she could not take care of her son because of her own disability. And you know what? We need to have the structure implemented to help the families, because a lot of parents, when they're working with people who have disabilities and their kids have disabilities, or just families in general, they age faster and they're neglecting their own health, and then they're not able to authentically, take care of themselves, and they wind up having more health issues versus, having the structure and community support and a lot of just support in place where the parents and the individuals could take care of themselves. And that way there are people that can help the families take care of the individual that has, the disability. So what happened with this particular individual is, thankfully, the foster parent stepped up and was able to say, I'll keep him. But the foster parent had their own disability. So there was nothing really, and there weren't any interventions in place to help either. It was just him being housed there. So it's removing the barriers and really tackling the issue, and not only utilizing the experience and knowledge I have, but also going into the communities and learn more and saying, okay, how can we tackle this on a larger level, and how can we address this on a federal level? Because my personal opinion is, I don't think issues like this should be tackled on a state level, where people the states don't really know the state. They're directing the monies and saying there's, let's put in this program. On a federal level, we should have the structure where where we have these things implemented to make sure everyone unified is getting the equal amount of help.
Okay, follow-up question. What about rural areas and late diagnosed adults? Autism is not a linear spectrum, nor is it only something that affects young adults.
Yes, and I agree. And that's where, again, like going in, because I have met some people that have been diagnosed at a later stage in life, and the current assistance is like non-existent. And because this is a specific question, I'm going to assume, Ashley, that you know what the actual disability process looks like, and it's a joke, and it's actually horrendous, because if someone they're just like, oh, you've worked so many years, you have this disability and you need this assistance, we're going to deny you for the help because you've done this. No, like a doctor saying this person needs help, we need to actually implement it. So making it on a federal level that we're able to approve help at a faster level, but also people in rural areas, and this goes with elderly people too, not just diagnosed adults. It's creating that structure in the team when it comes to care units, where it's just like, okay, we have people going out, making sure that travel's not an issue, that people are going there. Maybe if there are many people in one part of the state, maybe creating developing a base there where people can like just travel, and making sure that these people have the appropriate background checks too, and that they're getting the appropriate making sure that the appropriate help, and there's audits there too, so that way we have and very proper training too, so that way everyone gets the equal training. And just listening to going out into the rural communities, because I already have an idea, but again, like I'm not writing the blueprints right now, but they are the ideas are there, but it's listening when I go out and I'm doing town halls, listening to these barriers and making sure, okay, is everyone struggling with the same thing? Is it just a transportation issue? Then how do we overcome that? If it's how do we get people to go over there? Making sure that food's taken care of, making sure that medical doctor appointments are taken care of, making sure that medication's being taken care of, making sure that like all basic needs are being taken care of, and that the hygiene. So it's just whatever is needed is being able to be met. And I hope that answers. That was a loaded response.
Okay, well, our time's up. Christina, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope people, we get this, nonsense from people that don't know the Green Party, that we're, all middle class hippies, tree huggers. And as as Christina spoke from her personal experience, both coming up and the work she's doing now, I mean, she's as grassroots and working class as can be. And that's more typical of the Greens. I mean, I saw people were asking about Cornel West in the chat. Cornel went down to Mississippi, and then when he switched to independent, said, well, nobody in Mississippi knows about the Green Party. No, Cornel West doesn't know about Mississippi in the Green Party there. He was in Jackson, Mississippi. Kali Akuno, who's been a Green, was not part of his event there. We got Artis Burney running for state senate in southern Mississippi. And Cornell apparently was oblivious to that. And so we get all this nonsense. And I hope people, you look around and many of our candidates are like Christina, personal experience and concrete knowledge from the work they're doing, is whether it's their job or their movement activity or both. So that's one thing. And then let's get Christina's website in the chat, because I hope people will make a donation to her. It takes some money to run these campaigns, and we don't take corporate money. We need lots of contributions, relatively small, from lots of people.
Yes.
And that will help Christina, get going. She's got more than a year now to campaign.
Yes.
One thing that Christina and I have talked about, but I just want to, share this with everybody, is that of course, the most common question she's going to get from the media and from a lot of voters is, aren't you going to spoil the election? And whoever the Democrat is, you'll split the vote and the Republican will get in, which in New Jersey would be really hard to do because it's such a, Democratic state.
Well, they're a uniopoly, so there's no such thing as saying.
Yeah, the Republicans are a third party too. But I think, the answer to that's got to be, we got the answer to the spoiler problem. It's instant runoff voting or ranked choice voting, and then turn it around on Menendez or whoever the Democrat is. Will you join us in supporting this reform? And we'll get rid of the spoiler problem. And there's a bill for in the House, or it actually was in the House for 3 sessions. The Democrats haven't reintroduced it this session, which is a shame on them. It's called the Fair Representation Act, which for Senate races would require ranked choice voting. And for the House, it would require multi-seat ranked choice voting or proportional ranked choice voting, so that in a 3 to 5 seat district, with 20 to 30%, a Green could get one of those seats. And that would change. That'd be the most transformational reform to our political system, because then we'd have an inclusive multi-party democracy.
Yes.
So I just, I've been preaching that on this podcast since I ran in 2020. Fairvote.org, BD put in the chat. It's a good source for information. And then, that was my last point. Donate to, my last point was next week, I think we should just have questions and answers and comments, because there's a lot in the news. The Green presidential situation, Cornel West leaving, people still want to talk about that. And then we got this horrific situation in Palestine, Israel, and that whole region. So we've been calling for ceasefire, negotiate to get the captives free. And that will put a break on this pending offensive from Israel, which is going to be just devastating to the Palestinians. And if that happens, is Hezbollah and Iranian-linked militias in Syria and Iraq, are they going to get involved? And then would the U.S. get involved? I mean, this is, to me, the scariest moment I've lived through since the Yom Kippur War in 1973, when Nixon sent, nuclear-armed vessels, and we were afraid, we were about to have a nuclear war. So we got a lot to talk about. So we'll do question and answers next week. And once again, Christina, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Good luck with your campaign.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody.